Alright, so I'm sure most of you already know this stuff, but I figured it's only right to spend a few minutes talking about what Bootstrap actually is. So Bootstrap is an open source front-end framework for fast web development, and it gives us pre-made HTML and CSS templates with classes that we can use to format our user interface and websites. Okay, it takes away a lot of the work of, doing things like creating buttons, aligning items, formatting text, and many other things. It also gives us some pre-made JavaScript widgets and plugins to make our sites and applications more attractive. Bootstrap also has a mobile-first approach, so it's responsive by nature. Your Bootstrap themes, if created correctly, should adapt to any screen size. Alright, so what are some advantages to using a framework like Bootstrap? So first of all, you don't have to worry about browser compatibility. Your sites will look good on all browsers. As I said, it gives you much faster development and prototyping, gives you a much faster workflow. It's also good for developers that don't really have a great eye for design and UI. Bootstrap gives them the ability to create an attractive UI for their back-end programming. It's also very easy to learn. It's not like learning, a whole new programming language or anything like that. You basically just need to remember class names and understand things like the grid and flex and so on. You can also get responsive layouts with essentially no extra work. So these are some really, really nice points and nice advantages of using something like Bootstrap. Now, there's a few different ways to install Bootstrap. The easiest is just to include the CDN, or the Content Delivery Network link. It's essentially a remote link to the framework. You simply put this in your HTML, and this is what we'll be using for the first few learning sections. But when we get into our projects, we're going to have a much more professional workflow where we build from the source files. You can also just download the files from Bootstrap and include them in your project. And then we also have the npm package manager, node package manager, and that allows you to install Bootstrap through npm, which is installed with Node.js. This is actually what we'll be using in our projects. And then there's also another package manager called Bower, which is actually a client-side package manager. You can also install Bootstrap that way. So let's take a look at some of the components. We have forms and input groups, tables, list groups, cards, progress bars, alerts, nav bars and menus, buttons and button groups, pagination, media objects, utility classes, and badges. Okay, so these are some of the things that are included by default with Bootstrap that you can add to your UI and to your websites. All right, and we're going to be going over all of this stuff in depth using the Bootstrap sandbox. All right, we also have some JavaScript widgets, such as a carousel slider, which is basically like an image or a content slider, a collapsible accordion, which is, a menu where we can click on and we can have some content just kind of slide out from underneath. We also have modals, which are like pop-ups where you can put text and you can put forms and things like that. Tooltips, which, you hover over something and a nice tooltip fades in. Popovers, which are very similar to tooltips but a little nicer looking. So these are some things that are included with the Bootstrap JavaScript. All right, so that's the basics of what Bootstrap is. We're going to dive into all of this stuff, and we're going to learn all the CSS components, all the JavaScript widgets, and then, of course, build our projects. All right, so I will see you in the next video.